Picture the scene. It's not hard because you've seen the video. You're at a stadium. You know where this is going, right? 50,000 people bathed in the glow of 1,000 phone screens on a stage that costs more than a small island. It's the break between songs, and then the familiar, slightly cheesy music starts up. On the giant screens, a heart-shaped graphic appears. You know what's up. The camera finds a young couple. They laugh and kiss. The crowd cheers. Ah! Finds an elderly couple. They give us feedback. The crowd awes. It's a ritual. It's predictable. And then the camera lands on a man and a woman embracing. They see themselves on the giant screen, and instead of smiling or kissing, they panic. They duck their heads, hide their faces, and try to disappear into thin air. For a moment, the stadium is confused, and then a ripple of awkward laughter. Then Chris Martin, from the stage, his voice booming through the speakers. Either they're having an affair or they're just very shy. And with that one sentence, a rock star, music star, turns a moment of awkwardness into, well, a public accusation, and he gives 50,000 people and soon the whole internet a narrative. And I mean, it was right. But at that moment, a piece of light entertainment kind of malfunctioned and became a brutal instrument of public confession. Well, first of all, welcome to the Sunday Pod Mind for Media and Communication, where we put on our theoretical goggles to make sense of the media that is often designed to make no sense at all. And I'm not trying to hate on Chris Martin with that opening, but it's just what happened, right? Yes, they cheated, had an affair, and so on, but it made it all very, very public, of course, and added the narrative right away. So this past weekend, and I'm starting like this because I assume you've all seen it, right? The internet was obsessed with that one single moment from the Coldplay concert in Boston. And it was inescapable. But today we're not here for the gossip, just a little. We are here to put this moment under the microscope to treat it as a perfect specimen of how modern media operates, okay? Because that single panicked reaction, amplified by a musician's joke, tells us everything that we need to know about spectacle, surveillance, digital justice, and the ethics even of our own consumptions. So let's jump right into the anatomy of a spectacle. If you listened to this podcast before, this title should have already rang several bells. Yeah, first we need to understand what that kiss cam actually is. It has its roots in, I think, American sporting events since the 1980s. It's a cheap and an easy way to keep a stadium crowd engaged during a timeout, for example. And over time, it's evolved. It's a media ritual now, right? It's predictable. It's a piece of interactive content. It's great for engagement. It's a perfect example of what French philosopher Guy Debord, remember him, called the society of the spectacle. And Debord's argument was that modern life is no longer about living authentic experiences, but about consuming images and representations of those experiences. The spectacle isn't just an image. It's a social relationship between people that is mediated by images. So the kiss cam is pure spectacle. It takes a private and intimate space between two people and turns it into a public performance for mass entertainment. Yeah, it kind of reaffirms an idealized version of reality. Happy, loving couples exist, and we should applaud them. That's the idea behind it. Now, the Boston incident is so compelling because that spectacle, it broke, right? It malfunctioned. Instead of reflecting the happy, idealized image, the camera actually accidentally captured a raw, uncomfortable, and, well, devastatingly moment of real panic. Yet the mask slipped. And then, of course, Chris Martin's comment, while he thought he's funny, poured more gasoline on the fire. He probably didn't mean to do it, right? He was trying to be funny, but he gave the audience a pre-packaged narrative like, hey, there must have been an affair. That made the moment even more spectacular. So the broken spectacle, reframed as a scandal, became pretty irresistible. And the memes are flowing, right? So the question is, though, how does a playful game, right, turn into an instrument of ruin for several people? So we gotta talk about surveillance. In a crowd of 50,000, you feel anonymous, but you're not. You're inside what philosopher Michel Foucault called the panopticon. So Foucault's panopticon was a prison design where a single guard in a central tower could see every inmate. But the inmates never knew if they were being watched. The result? The prisoners start policing themselves. The possibility of being watched is enough to enforce discipline. So a modern stadium is a temporary, playful panopticon. Yeah, we consent to this permanent visibility as part of the price of admission. But the Coldplay incident exposes the darker side of this game. The camera operator and the director, in this case, are the guards of the tower. They made a series of active editorial choices, and they chose to single out that couple. They chose to linger on their panicked reaction. Crucially, they chose to broadcast Chris Martin's funny, speculative comment to the entire stadium. So they weren't passive observers. They were active directors of a micro-drama in that moment. And their tool of light entertainment became a tool of moral judgment. They didn't just show an image. They collaborated with the onstage talent to tell a short, they thought funny story about that image, turning entertainment into, well, accusation. And again, it's not about right or wrong, because we know by now they were cheating, having affairs, and so on. I'm just trying to explain that everything is based on decisions. Also, the way we portray what is happening on the kiss cam, that the way that that they decided to stay on there, even when they were turning away, they were still staying on there, for example. So that was all on purpose. Now they probably didn't think that they would, like, I know that the ripple effect would be that big, but they still made those active decisions. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to explain. And while the humiliation inside the stadium was temporary, of course, but within minutes, the clip escaped. It shattered like into a million pieces across TikTok, X, Instagram. And the second, the more brutal wave of judgment began, of course. That's what we call digital pillory, okay? In medieval times, a criminal would be locked in stocks in town square for public shaming. The internet is our current town square, right? But the pillory is global and it's permanent. And a key concept here is called context collapse. The clip, originally part of the live concert experience, was stripped of the context, became a standalone piece of evidence for millions of online jurors. And this is then where the digital detective work began, using facial recognition, social media scraping. So then online sleuths, they quickly identified the two individuals as the CEO and head of HR of the company Astronomer. Okay. So in this new context, a powerful boss with a subordinate added fuel to the fire, right? The online mob immediately cast him into simple mythic roles like the cheating CEO, unethical HR lady, and so on. And again, I'm not saying, I hope that it's clear that I'm not saying what they do is right. I'm trying to explain what's behind all that, right? So labeling that like the cheating CEO, the unethical HR lady, is a flattening of complex human interactions into like narrative archetypes. And that's usually that's a key feature of online discourse. We always flatten things out, making things easy, right? He's dead, she's dead, da, da, da. The psychological concept of what we call in this case de-individuation, okay? It helps explain the ferocity behind all the accusations. In an anonymous online crowd, it's easy to lose your sense of individual responsibility and to join the pylon, especially when the targets are perceived as powerful and wealthy. You're not feeling sympathetic to those people, right? You're like, hey, they deserve it, those cheaters. So it brings us to the most complex question, like who's to blame for the CEO now basically losing his job, right? And it's easy to point a finger at him. And of course, morally speaking, right, not okay. I hope that's clear. So individuals always bear personal responsibility for their actions and their choices. But that's where the story starts, not where it ends. Yeah, we're looking at like how the media plays part of it. So to understand the media phenomenon, we have to look at that entire chain. And if you look at media ethics and examine the duty of care as part of media ethics, first, Chris Martin. What's the ethical responsibility of a musical star with a microphone? His off-the-cuff joke was not neutral observation. It's a powerful act of media intervention that framed the entire narrative and sparked the viral fire. Again, I understand it was a joke, but when it's being broadcasted, and your concerts are always broadcasted, again, if I was in Chris Martin's shoes, I might have made the I joke, to be honest. I might have said the same thing, because look at this, it's awkward. Why is this awkward? Not blaming him for them, just saying this is what happens, okay? Same thing with the camera operator. If you're seeing like an awkward moment, you're like, hey, this is funny, let's just stick on it, stay on it. But the operator and director, in theory, they have a duty of care to the subjects they were filming. Or do you say, no, wait, they have a professional obligation to make good TV entertainment. So their decision to linger and broadcast that moment had foreseeable and devastating real-world consequences. Again, ethics is always hard to debate, right? So we're really curious to hear your thoughts on that. Also then, the online investigators, right? And people sharing everything online. Every person who created like more memes and participated in the digital manhunt, who shared the clip with a judgmental caption, who posted individual names and places of work, they're the final link in the chain, the distributors of the spectacle. And one more time, I completely understand it. I also shared some of the memes with my friends, like, because it's funny. But we're trying to look at like how does media actually impact and media usage impact what is actually happening, okay? What's fascinating here is also that the final punishment, the CEO's resignation, right, wasn't delivered by a court or a board of directors in a vacuum. It was delivered in response to the immense pressure created by this network chain of events. So this is a new form of corporate accountability, if you will, driven not by regulators, but, and I'm just going to say it in a harsh way to get your attention, by a viral mob. And in this case, right? In this case, we're like, yeah, but he deserved it, sure. But if you just look at it as like something that could happen in other aspects too, it's messy, it's dangerous, And it's a pretty powerful force. The cancellation on steroids. And again, you can say, but he deserved it. Not arguing that. Just saying this could happen in other instances too. Okay? So we started with an awkward moment at a concert, and we ended up with a complex system of spectacle, surveillance, mob justice, and the CEO out of a job. You don't need to worry about him. So many more things came out about him later on, right? Also with previous companies. So it's really hard to feel sympathetic towards him. So not even arguing that, okay? And just again, one more time, trying to explain the media machine behind that. Yet the Kiss Cam didn't just expose two people, it exposed the architecture of how power, shame, and accountability operate in 2025. And that's why I find it so interesting. Because it forces us to ask some uncomfortable questions. And maybe the most important one is about asking questions about our own role. Yeah, so next time you see a video of someone's worst moment pop up on your feed, before you hit the share button, which you still should be doing if you feel like it, but you can always ask, am I just watching the spectacle, or am I helping to build the pillar? Then you're aligned with your answer, then you hit the share button. What do you think about that? I mean, one more time, I said it now 10 times during this podcast just to make sure nothing gets clipped out in the wrong way. I'm not defending that dude. He deserves everything that comes at him, especially knowing like what he did before and how he ran his previous companies and all those things, allegedly. Trying to explain how the media machinery works in such moments, with such moments. Let me know what you're saying. Shout out in the comments, leave a review, at FunkyPod on social media. Until then, stay safe, take care, enjoy the Kiss Cam. Sorry, yeah.